The first step to making this pasta dish is to make our meat ahead of time. These are beef bone-in short ribs, and I'm putting some filtered water from the Berkey in there. And I've put about a cap full of apple cider vinegar in the water. Now what that's going to do is draw the minerals out of the bones, because the meat we're going to use for the pasta dish, but we're going to use the broth that comes from this as our beef bone broth and store it in the refrigerator. You can also can it, freeze it, do whatever you want to, but this is our first step in doing that. And the meat is going to be so tender, so delicious, just from cooking it for several hours in the slow cooker. So I'm gonna put this out on the porch so it doesn't have a nasty fight with my air conditioner. And that's where our meat is gonna start with the cooking process. Okay, it is the next morning and our beef bones pretty much cooked on the front porch most of the day yesterday. In fact, our dinner guest left last night. I looked down and I went, oh, I guess I need to bring my slow cooker in. All right, we're going to fish around in this. I let this cool just on my stovetop overnight, so it is just cooled off enough to where I can touch it. Of course, it doesn't solve that yucky grease problem on there, but I shouldn't say grease, it's fat. It is beef fat. Okay, I want to show you how tender this is. That layer of fat I need to get off of there. But I mean, every speck of this meat that I can salvage, it's going in there. This, I started to say you could cut this like butter, but it's not even a cut. It's more like you just touch it and it falls apart. But there's so much flavor in this, and the only thing that's been in that water is a little bit of apple cider vinegar to draw the minerals out of the bones. Look at that. That's just so soft. Now, if you wanted to add this to some kind of soup or something like that, or just eat it by itself, that would be totally fine. But what I'm going to do with this is top a pasta that I made a few weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, I guess, that I saw on YouTube somewhere. And the lady had taken a steak and cooked it for this dish and just sliced it up at the last minute and put it on top of the pasta. Well, I went and got some of that really thin sliced meat. It says for Milanese or something like that. I'm sure it's something I don't even know what I'm doing with, but I took some of that and just pan fried it, and it was okay. It didn't have a bad flavor to it at all. It's just, it wasn't what I was looking for, but the pasta was still so good. I was like, good grief, I could probably put a slice of bologna on this, it would still be so delicious. So my thoughts when I started pondering, what else could I use for that instead of lighting the grill? Because right now it's so dry outside, sometimes they're giving us burn bans and you can't even grill out in your own backyard. But my first thought was this meat right here, because it's so tender, it's so delicious, and I mean, I could think of 100 things to do with it, honestly, because it's so good. But on top of that pasta, I'm thinking that might just be our ticket to making it the best thing I've ever had. So this is how easy it is to clean off the bone. Now, I think there's 3 more bones in the slow cooker, and I will put these back in there. I'll drain off that bone broth, put it in canning jars, stick it in my refrigerator where I have a designated space, and then refill it with water again, put a little bit more cider vinegar in it again to draw minerals out of the bones, and it's going to draw all this yumminess out right there. And I'll just keep doing that until there's really nothing left to use it for. So I'll do this at least 1 or 2 more times, but there won't be any meat on it at that point. So this is the only time I have to pick the meat up. But I just wanted you to see this process of getting this meat off, because it's just so tender. You just pick it off with your fingers, and that's about how tender it is to eat. I mean, it's 6:30 in the morning right now, And I made it into the kitchen a few minutes ago, and I thought, I don't really want to smell that beef, but I'm telling you, it smells good. This is not my favorite thing to smell early in the morning, but this smells really, really good. So, all right, we'll pick up when I turn the cameras back on with hopefully our pasta recipe, and then you'll see this meat right here going on top of the pasta. So, we'll see you then. Hey friends, welcome back to She's At It Again. My name is Tanya, and we have some clouds today, which is really, really nice. I'm not normally a fan of clouds, but considering our temperatures have been in the hundreds for the last 2 days, I'm pumped about those clouds. So we're going to be making some pasta today, a spicy pasta topped with beef, but we start with cooking short ribs to make a beef bone broth. And then I take that meat off the bones, and it is so tender. I don't even have words to explain how tender it is. It's like almost like touching nothing, and it pulls off the bone really easy. So I stored it in the refrigerator for several days now. Now we're going to make our pasta. Our lunch isn't still tomorrow when we're going to serve this, but I want to get this done ahead of time because I don't want to be still cooking when my guests walk in. I just want it to be in the oven, heating up. So go with us as we make some spicy pasta topped with short ribs, beef on the top. So let's go. All right, we have our salted water heating up in this saucepan, but I want to show you this. I'm going to use penne pasta today. You can pretty much use whatever pasta you want, but this particular sauce just works well in the tube-like pasta like this instead of long strands of spaghetti, which doesn't have any place to kind of tuck in the sauce. So this works great. This came from Trader Joe's, and we're going to be using half of this package. So I'll empty half of this out into another container. All right, we're over here at the stovetop now. Just got finished cooking my pasta. I had to stop because I looked down and the screen on my wireless mic wasn't on, which means my battery was dead. So I had to stop and recharge the battery. Oh my goodness. I call myself well prepared on a lot of things, but apparently that's not one of them. Sorry again. I apologize for all the technical stuff that I'm just not very good at. So anyway, okay, I have my skillet heating up right now. It's on like medium low, and I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of olive oil in there. And I'm a good oil eyeballer, so I didn't measure it with a spoon. We're going to add to that 2 cloves of garlic, and I'm just going to kind of eyeball that too. They say about 1 teaspoon is 2 cloves. So and we like garlic a lot, in case you didn't catch on to that. Plus this has garlic powder in it later on. Now this, I do have to say ahead of time, this is one of the fastest pasta sauces I've ever made in my life. For it to be this good, and it just has simple ingredients you probably have in your spice cabinet and some in the refrigerator, just a few, but it has such good spicy flavor. It's not like overwhelmingly just so spicy you just can't taste anything else. It's just a beautiful, beautiful flavor. All right, I'm going to wait till this starts heating up a little bit, then we're going to add our heavy cream to this. And I do not want the garlic to burn. I've said this numerous times. I love garlic, but I do not love burned garlic. It just ruins the whole thing. So I just want to make sure this doesn't get too brown and start going nuts. But you kind of add the things so fast, and there's so few, well, not really few of them, but it's just not complicated, so it doesn't take you long to get everything added to it. You're going to have most things at hand. All right, this is starting to sizzle in the center, and that is my cue to start adding everything else. We're going to add a cup of heavy cream. I'm going to set my measuring cup aside because now I need to put some chicken stock in this to measure it, and there's no sense in using 2 measuring cups when I could just use 1. All right, here's my chicken bone broth, and I'm going to add this to that measuring cup and have that ready. We're going to add to this 2 teaspoons of dried parsley. I don't know why this can't get non-blurry. A teaspoon and a half of paprika. There's my paprika. There's a half. There's a full. Here we go with more garlic. I'm going to use a half teaspoon of garlic powder. Here's where the spicy comes in. We have cayenne. But we're just going to use a 1/4 teaspoon or less. If you don't want it too spicy, use less than a 1/4 of a teaspoon. If you want spicy, use a 1/4 of a teaspoon. Turn my heat down just a bit. I would turn the vent hood on, but it's too loud and it would probably just drown out any other sound that you might need to hear, like something I might say. We also need a half teaspoon of red pepper flakes, and they just look like this. There's a 1/4. And there's a 1/4. This will also add spice too. We'll need a 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And our half cup of chicken broth or chicken stock. This is homemade chicken bone broth. I always keep in my garage refrigerator. I have bone broth on one shelf and chicken broth on the other shelf, and sometimes when one shelf just gets too crowded, I have to move it to another, kind of relocate it, and then in my mind, it looks like I have a whole lot of one thing, but sometimes I have to go out there and kind of assess the situation, see how much stock I have, literally how much stock, back stock of chicken stock. Now normally, obviously, this is served right away. So you take your pasta, put it in your sauce, you put it on this lovely serving platter, and you top it with your cheese and serve it right away. But again, we're not eating this until tomorrow, and I'm just going to put mine in a casserole dish that I've generously coated with coconut oil on the inside surface, so it won't stick, and I really don't think it'll stick. It's got enough fat in here where it probably won't, but I'm just going to reheat this before my guests come. That way I can focus on getting other things ready. All right, we're going to let this reduce just a little bit more. All right, I also add to this about 2 cups of fresh spinach. Now, the other day I went to the store and I got a 5-ounce package of organic spinach, and I crammed it all into this gallon zip top bag, and I laid it across the counter on top of it till I pushed all the air out of it and sealed it up, and it looks like almost nothing, which is the idea. But the nice thing about freezing spinach is you can take it and break it up like this instead of chopping it with a cutting board and a knife, and it breaks up beautifully. So I'm just going to take, just a couple of handfuls of this and add to our sauce. And I don't necessarily need the leaves to be broken up like I would with anything else. And this is just a matter of how much you want in there. It's not really a particular measurement, but like I said, that was 4 handfuls right there, and it was close to half of the package, which was supposed to be 5 cups. I don't know how they measure spinach, really and truly. I mean, if you squish it down, you can fit a whole lot of spinach in a small space. So I'm not sure how they measure that, but mine's just going to go for a few big handfuls. Now, if you want this thicker, I don't particularly need it thicker because I'm going to bake it later on and I want that extra moisture in there. But if you want this a little bit thicker, you can add about a teaspoon of cornstarch or flour to your chicken broth in your cup, and then when you pour it in here, of course, start cooking it and it will get thicker. But I don't necessarily need it thicker. You can also add pasta water later on too if you need to make it a little bit thicker. That flour that's inside the pasta water gives it a nice balance. It adds the moisture to it, but it also keeps it thick. Not a dry, but a thick. Okay, I want you to see my helper down here. She's always at my feet. She has to make sure I'm doing it right. And when I go to the sink, she has to go to the sink too. All right, I'm going to use what is called a spider, and I'm going to dish my pasta out instead of taking it over to the sink to drain it. I'm just going to dish it out from here.
The original recipe for this and the one I made earlier, I made this a few weeks ago and thought, oh, I need to make that for a video because the flavor was just so good. But it called for cooking the steak, and you slice it real thinly once you get it done, and then you top the pasta with it. But once I decided I needed to make some bone broth, and I remembered how very tender that meat was that were on those short ribs, I thought, okay, there's no question. I'm not going to do a steak on top of this. I did a real thin, like a Milanese steak the other day, and it was fine, and the flavor was good, but I'm telling you, the short rib meat is just, again, I don't even have the words to describe how very tender that meat is. Literally, it was almost like cotton candy or something. I don't really know. It was just so good. So I think it's going to be lovely on top of this. All right, let's go over. We're going to put this in a casserole dish and just let it cool off and stick it in the fridge. Okay, this is our casserole dish. I'm hoping this is big enough. I had a larger one and then I changed my mind. I thought, no, I don't want to look like it's half empty, so I like to have things at least appear to be full and not like I did something with half of it. Okay, that's perfect. So I'm going to put part of the Parmesan on there now, or not Parmesan, this is actually Pecorino Romano. I'm going to put part of it on there now, and then once we heat it up tomorrow, of course this will all be melted down into that, then I'll add additional Pecorino Romano on it and then put the short rib meat on top of it, which I'll heat up the same time I'll heat it up, just not together. I just want it to look pretty. So pretty's part of it. Okay, get a good look at that. And then I'll show you this show this to you again tomorrow, right before we serve it, when we'll have the short rib meat on the top. So I'm excited about it. We're having friends over, and we hadn't got to visit with them in quite a while. It's been a busy season for all of us, so I'm looking forward to that. But if I don't get to say this tomorrow, then I appreciate you joining us for this. Recipe is in the description as always, and we look forward to sharing something again with you real soon. Bye, friend.